everybody, I'm Stephanie Ostrander of the C45 Quality Association, and today we're going to be taking a virtual and bilingual tour of PhytoChemia labs in Saguenay, Quebec. We're here with the Director of Business Development, Hubert Marceau.
Good morning to you, and also good morning to the C45 Association. So it's a pleasure to be with you this morning, and I've been tasked to give you a little tour of what is a lab. So you probably all know what is a lab, but how the inside of a lab work, especially in regards to quality control that we do and the quality management systems that we used. So I'm a natural product chemist, and in 2013, with two of my class colleagues, we decided to start a lab that would specialize in natural product analysis. Very early on in 2014, before the announced that cannabis would be legalized, we started asking to have our license to work with it because cannabis is a plant, and this was something that we wanted to work on. So 7 years later, we are now a team of 18 chemists and microbiologists and even software developer. And we offer services to all the industry, especially in the cannabis industries and also into the flavor and fragrance industry, where we work a lot with different companies internationally who produce the compounds that are used in flavoring and perfumery, for example.
Hubert, can you tell us about your LIMS system and how you developed it?
So a LIMS system, LIMS stands for Laboratory Inventory Management Software. So it is basically a software that helps you manage the sample in the lab and the material that you have. It can go from a simple Excel spreadsheet where you write down everything that needs to be done and that is done, to a more sophisticated software that can handle more data and that allow you to get more information. So as many labs, in fact, we started with an Excel spreadsheet because it's usually the cheapest and the easiest to work with when you're in small scale. But as we grew up, we could not work with only one Excel spreadsheet because there were more and more information that we require to get into compliance with the request from our customer. And also we wanted to have more communication between each steps of the process that is required to do an analysis or services into the chemical industry. So we started developing our own LIMS internally, then we started adding software developer to help us with this. The LIMS first and foremost use is to help you track your sample and to help you track what's happening into the labs. And this is very important because this is what helps you offering the right services to the right customers and ensuring that everything is well controlled into your building.
Hubert, can you speak to us a little bit about risks that clients should consider and data security around LIMS systems?
Things that are important to take into consideration is that the lab should be able to retrieve data at all points, even if it's multiple years following the analysis. This is important because in the case of compliance inspection, you will be requested to give data that sometimes are from a long time ago. They will not inspect what's happened last week. They will inspect last year and sometime the year before that. So having someone that is able to give you the data ideally quickly and all the data that is needed for your inspection and for your need is something very important. And this is a big part of what the LIMS does, is that it keeps these data and it allows you to retrieve them more easily. The second part that is very important into a LIMS is the data security. When you are partnering with a lab, you are sharing data that are initially confidential and stay confidential. So it is important that the lab be aware that the data that they have on site are very important for you also and need to be protected very strictly.
Hubert, can you tell us how a LIMS system improves the quality management system in a lab?
So a quality management system in a lab has two main uses. The first one is data aggregation. So the quality management system ensures that the data are available at the right person at the right time. For example, if you have a binder in which you have all your methods, you must ensure that these methods are available to the one that will be using it. If you have an electronic system, then you need to ensure that the right person has the right access into the electronic system to the document that it will be used during their work. The second use of the quality management system is data compilation. So it's being able to input the data as you go. So in this case, it may be a written worksheet where you write the data as you go during your process. This could be a lab notebook, or it could be an electronic system where the data are entered directly electronically, either by being interfaced with the equipment or by being entered by the user. So these are the two main use of the quality management system. And this quality management system eventually has one goal, and the goal is to ensure that the job is done and that the job is done correctly, which means that you can retrace everything that was done and everything that need to be done for a product. And this is very important when delivering data to a customer, and this is something that is necessary if in the long term, because this is how you eventually find potential error sources and correct them in the future. So the quality management system is a tool to improve yourself as you go. It's an iterative tool that needs to be fluid and to grow with you.
Hubert, can you tell us about your SOPs at PhytoChemia?
In our labs, or SOPs are all electronic. So we are using a modified MediaWiki, which is the same platform that Wikipedia is used to be able to track the changes that are made to SOPs and also to have discussion on said SOPs. As I said previously, quality management system is something that needs to evolve. So if you write a SOP and something changes in the lab, either they find a better way to do things and they are able to prove that the better way to do things still give the good result, then the SOP need to reflect that. So these SOPs need to be up to date because they will also be the one that will be used to train your future employee. So having strong, clear, and fully developed SOPs also help in case of an employee departure, for example, to ensure that there's a continuity and that there's no stopping in the service, which is something very important for the customer in the case of a lab. You don't want your lab to tell you, well, I can't give you this service right now because my employee is sick or my employee had an accident or someone left unexpectedly. So this is very important to have note written and everything written to an SOP. And the second part that is often overlooked is that since SOP need to evolve, you also need to take into consideration the comments that are given by the user of said SOPs. So having something in place that gives you the opportunity to receive these information, which are often overlooked by the management because they are not the one in the field, if I can say this, really gives a boost to your SOP's quality.
Hubert, can you tell us about the equipment that you purchased and what was some of your decision-making criteria?
I think that for most lab, one of the criteria is the price. You want to have a good price and quality point, but choosing the right lab equipment often go further than this. So there are different levels of lab equipment that will be used into a process, for example, for a test. And each step and each instrument will often require a risk assessment. For example, the equipment used to shake sample doesn't have the same complexity as a GC or HPLC, for example, that will be used to acquire the data. So for very simple equipment, we usually try to find something that is low cost yet still efficient. That's one of the crux. We also try to aim for something that is easy to clean or that can be used with disposable plastic, which we recycle. One of the reasons for that is to stop potential cross-contamination between samples. The other thing that I personally like to consider in my lab is I want something that is able to give results that are easy to process. I'm a big fan of open source, so if I can use equipment that allows for open source inspection of the code, that's something that I like. The other thing that I take into consideration is my relationship with the furniture. Usually I like to have everything from the same source. One of the reasons for that is because training employee on different instruments is usually easier if they all have a very similar software or a very similar philosophy of operation behind them. And it also helps if you have duplicate system to have pieces that can be interchanged because they are using the same SKU, for example. So, but in the end user is usually the one who will make the final decision, because you can have a great system on paper, but there may be some quirk that make it hard to operate or that make the user don't like to operate it. And this is not something that you want, because you want the operator to be to really like the instrument, so he can first of all take good care of it and also use it correctly instead of just trying to, I would say, skip corner or something like that because it doesn't want to work with the instrument.
Some producers are considering starting their own in-house lab. What are some of the things that they should be considering when purchasing lab equipment or setting up their own lab in their facility?
I know that some producers want to start their own in-house lab, and honestly, I don't think that this is a bad idea. But when you start your own lab, you need to take into consideration multiple things. It's kind of running your own little company inside a company, because the labs have their own budget requirement, they have their own human resources requirement, and they also have their own equipment requirement, which is kind of the biggest part of a lab, in fact. Operating a lab is not a one-man operation, first and foremost, and operating a quality lab is certainly not a two-man operation. So you may find out that you are duplicating cost for a very low return on investment, depending on how much you run sample and how many you require per weeks or per day. Having equipment that sits and aren't used is usually not a good investment, first and foremost. And even if their instruments are not used, they still have operating costs, because you still need to do some maintenance, and some of them will require constant consumable, for example. So it is a great idea to have a lab on site, because it usually is faster than to go to an external lab for point check or for some R&D application. But you need to be in consideration that this may not be a cost-cutting measure, but a time-cutting measure.
Well, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for answering our questions, Hubert.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you, C45, and I hope to see you in the near future.